So welcome to the Default Profitable Podcast, the show that's a toolbox for real strategies behind starting and building consistently profitable businesses. Whether you're a founder, a leader, or just a curious builder starting to dream, I'm your host, Matt Nettleton. Today, my guest is Bill Reynolds. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Matt. I'm glad to have you. I'm glad to be on the show.
Yeah, no problem. So we haven't really talked. So before we jump into your business,
Sure.
why don't you introduce yourself as a human to people?
Sure. I'm Bill Reynolds. I'm founder, president, Element 502. Married for almost 30 years. Got two great kids, one in college, one finishing up high school here soon. I've been in marketing and advertising for a long time, but as Element 502 the last 10 years.
All right. So obvious question, where's your kid go to school?
My daughter, she goes to EKU. So she's at Eastern Kentucky University. She's going to be an occupational therapist.
And I assume the one that's almost done with high school is a senior?
He's a sophomore. And so I say he's almost done because he's wrapping up soon, but he'll have taken enough dual credit classes to have probably an associate's degree by the time he graduates. So he'll be hitting the ground running.
Nice. So I've got a senior in high school and two kids that have graduated from college. So
there you go.
It keeps moving. So it's very quick. So let's talk about your business, Element 502. When did you start it?
So it kind of had a couple of different starts in it. Technically, we'll say that we started May 2015. That's when we actually started.
All right. So you said it had a couple different starts. That's a great part of the story because most people don't realize that happens to a lot of businesses. So tell us about that. So
it started in 2014 as a consulting gig for the previous owner of a company that turned into Element 502 to do some workplace automation, get some team building processes, and some standardization. It turned into me being the president in 2015, which turned into me ended up doing an asset purchase in May of 2015 and then gutting, rebranding, and turned into Element 502. So that's probably the most condensed version I can give you.
All right. So what was it when you got hired in as a consultant and you started to work with them? What was it that made you think, man, I could probably do this?
Well, I come from a marketing and advertising background. I did a lot of operations. I'm not a creative. I'm not a visually creative person. You would not want me to do that. I don't pick out colors for stuff. I don't come up with ideas. I look at data. I'm a numbers and analytics and a background kind of guy. So operations is where I usually had sat. So whenever I was putting together the operation plan for the company I was consulting for, it was one of those things like, oh, this is neat. And there's some good opportunities and some things there. And that's how I got seated as president. It's because I did so good on the operations, on the consulting side. The previous owner was like, you should just run this whole thing for me. And so that's how we got started off there.
All right. And so not being like visually creative, obviously in a world of measured marketing, right? That data bent is pretty valuable. But did you really have a passion for it, or did you? So when businesses start, typically there's one group of business owners who are like, man, I'm passionate about this. I'll figure out the money.
Right.
And there's another group of business owners who are like, well, the money's here. I'll just have to figure out the business. Which of those two ends of the spectrum were you closer to?
I'll tell you the rest of the story. And so I'm not like I'm running for office. It's choice C, Matt. And I'll tell you why. So the owner had come to me. There was some financial troubles in the back of the company. Nobody was stealing or embezzling, but things that an owner would know that a president wouldn't know because they don't necessarily show up on a balance sheet or those kinds of things. And so that's where the opportunity to do the asset purchase and these things came out. It wasn't sized right once I got my arms around everything. And so it was really like, what should we do here? Is this something that we should buy, should not buy? So I went to my wife. I said, hey, I need you to pray about this and figure out what we should do on this company thing. Like, do I need to find another job? Do we need to do this? Do we need to do that? And she said, okay, I'll pray with you. So we got back together a couple of days and later, and she said, Bill, I have bad news. I said, what's the bad news? She said, I really feel like the Lord is leading us to buy this business. And this is not looking good on paper at all. This isn't like, you invest 10,000 now and you're going to get 100 at the end. Like that, it was not that kind of thing. And I said, well, that stinks. I've got worse news. And she said, well, what's that? I said, I'm feeling the same way that we're supposed to. And so that's how we got into it. So not necessarily from the profitability standpoint, but just the ability to do something different, to treat people differently, to be able to use the platform of a company to behave differently. Marketing and advertising people get a bad rap, just like people who are, like card salesmen or lawyers or these other things, because there's so much intangible that's in there. And then people be like, oh, so you don't really, it it just doesn't feel like you're able to always understand what you're spending money on, what it's doing for you, and those things. And so being able to change that up, you had mentioned the data side, those kinds of things, just being able to look at things a little differently, treat people a little differently, and then showing that, hey, that there's value in what we do, and you can feel confident in how you got there.
Yeah, that's great. So you really did have a vision of the business you wanted to have.
Yes. So I had a vision of what could be. And so, yeah, then we figured out some money along the way. But as far as jumping in, no, it wasn't. That wasn't on my list of choices.
All right. So here's another question about the startup, because one of the things that, when we talk to people who are thinking about starting up a business, and, they'll throw out the, well, I've been told that I need to have a well-written, fully developed strategy. I need to have 6 months of savings, and I need to have
Uh-huh.
a clear understanding of what my clients will pay for. So when you think back to when you started your business, how many of those did you have lined up?
So I secured financing to give me 6 months of runway to get the business right sized and to go. So I did. I went through that one. I had a misunderstanding of what people would pay. And I say that because I thought I knew the answer to that question, but I was wrong. We were way underpriced for what we were doing, and so the fact that we were having to work hard to make those sales leading up to the transfer was an awkward moment to go through. Once I figured that out, and then secondly, it was just pushed in. We were and I figured that out because towards the end of the first year that we were in business, we were in trouble. We were financially in trouble. We weren't doing so hot. And I remember I needed $18,000 and that number stuck. I knew that's what I needed. I needed that number to make it through to the next month, to be able to make this thing go, to pay the employees, to just be operational. And I was going to a pitch meeting, and I walked in and was talking to this lady, and she's like, well, how much would this cost? And I was like, $18,000. I which was way more than we would have ever have pitched out before, but that's what I needed to be able to make the thing work. And she was like, "Oh, well, I thought it would be more, but that's great. So we'll sign that." And I was like, "Oh, crud," because not only did I leave money behind, but I mean, if I had, based on previous sales people that had been working there, based on other things that had been brought, because I was on the operations side, not on the sales side, I would have told you that project, we would have pitched it probably around 9,500 all day long, anytime before. So almost a 2x. And this woman thought she was getting a deal. So
Yeah.
that's why I say I thought I knew the answer to what people would pay. I was wrong. I was really wrong. But yeah, so I
So it's
did get some savings, and then had some idea of market understanding.
yeah. So it sounds like you were 1 for 3, which is actually higher than 160 of the 165 people I've interviewed. So,
Well,
yeah,
the only reason I needed the revenue was because we were so upside down as the way when I finally got a hold of everything. So it was all in necessity is the mother of invention kind of thing that was in there.
yeah, yeah. All right. So when you take over, you sit down, you're starting to figure this all out. What are some of the things that you learned that you didn't think you would need to know?
Probably the most humbling thing, and it happened right at the beginning because I had been working as the president, and so um, right after we got all the paperwork and everything was going through, we had the LOI was executed, all that good stuff. I met with the current staff, and we were going to move. We had already been talking about moving, so we were at this new location, and the staff is there, and we're kind of talking about what would this look like for offices? How could we lay this out? And I said, okay, so we went through that, and I said, hey everybody, let's just huddle up here for a minute. I said, I got some news to share with you guys. I said, as of Monday, and this was on a Wednesday. I said Monday, as of Monday of next week, I'll be the new owner of the company. And everybody was excited because they had been working with me for several months as president. Before that, as consultant, I'd kind of gained some staff support and some morale there. I said, well, don't get too excited. I said, payroll is this Friday, and there's not enough money in the bank to pay you guys. Now I'm going to pay you. I'm not stealing money from you, but because the revenue is coming in, and we've got investment money coming in, but we're not putting money into the bank account until it's actually ours, until everything's signed, because we're not putting money in somebody else's company. So
Right.
I'm not going to be able to pay you Friday, but I'll be able to pay you on Monday, Tuesday at the very, very latest. And they're like, oh, okay. I was like, well, I just true transparency. And I said, but wait, there's more. That's the last. So everybody across the company, including myself, gets a 10% pay cut after this next payroll check, because that's what we're getting. We need to trim. We need to do some deep trimming right off the bat to help us make us more profitable. And they all went, okay. And I said, and today's Wednesday. So if you want to take off Friday to kind of think about what's in front of you, because I'm being as honest and transparent as I can, or if you want to come to work, that's fine. You're getting paid either way. And then just on Monday, tell me what you're doing, and I'm going to give you your paycheck. I said, there's no need to sue me for your paycheck because I don't have any money to give you, and it'll be just a waste of your time. But I'm telling you, I will pay you on Monday. So Friday rolls around, everybody showed up for work. Monday, everybody showed up for work. And Matt, they kept working, even though they knew they were getting a pay cut, even though they knew these things. And I did not expect people to buy into the idea of doing something differently so quickly, because that's your livelihood. That's all this. So you got to think, like, here in the span of about 3.5, 4 minutes, I've told you that I owe you money that I can't pay you, but I promise I'll pay you next week. And that's the last time I'm going to pay you that much, because I got to cut everybody, including myself, because it's not fair for everyone else and leader to be able to still eat. So we went through. So I was not expecting that, and
So
that was
what was it when you think back to that? What was it that you believe made them buy in?
I think it's the way that you treat people. I that I everybody can be a cog in the machine or have their own little place they have to play on the line. But when you actually ask people, you get them involved, they feel they're part of something. And then the other part was integrity and trust, that you have to keep demonstrating that over and over. It's the old adage, it takes a lifetime to build and only a moment to lose. And I think putting myself in the same position as everybody else opened that up. And so they had seen that demonstrated for several months leading up to, and then even post announcements, they saw that same type of the way that we were working. Back to, we just wanted to do things differently and show people, like, internally and externally, you can do business a little different.
Was there anything else? I mean, that's a great that is one of the better stories. So, anything else that you had to learn early on?
So I didn't know how to sell. I was never in sales. I was always in operations. I was always, on the other side. I always supported our sales in different companies and different organizations I was at. Usually was in charge of all the ops, and then somebody else was in charge of sales. And so we would work together to support each other. But I lost my salespeople early on inside of Element 502's infancy. And so the only way that we were going to stay in business was to sell. And I didn't know how. I was a babe in the woods. I had no idea how any of that worked. And so going through that process was pretty fun, which is why I told you about the 18 grand thing. Cause
Yeah.
I just sat down and they're like, well, how much would this cost? I'm like, well, this is how much money I need. So let's do that.
Well, let's put
So
a number on that.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
just put a number on that. And so, just even sales tactics or just, research and all of that. I didn't do any of that stuff. So I had to take the baptism of fire quickly to be able to get through that. So sales and sales acumen was a quick lesson I had to learn, or else everybody was going to starve. So
Yeah. All right. So now that you've been in it, I guess you said 2015, so 10 years.
10 years. Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other lessons you've picked up?
You know, you have to earn. I'll go back to trust. That's usually the biggest one, because I hear the story a lot, just like you were saying. I have 165 stories
Yeah.
you've heard. I you start talking to people that a lot of times people have a story. Well, yeah, I knew this. We worked with a marketing company before, and man, we just really didn't understand we were spending money. We felt like we were taking for a ride. There's always these bad stories. And I tell people, it's marketing and advertising and the stuff that we do. you can go to school and you can get a degree or you can get those kinds of things. There's a lot of people who have jobs around the world, all kinds of different jobs that have a degree that still shouldn't have any business doing that job, right? So the
Yeah.
degree is not a good place. If you're a doctor or you're a lawyer or you're one of these things, there's an accreditation that you carry. There's a third party that says, yes, they have this proficiency, so you should trust them in this. So that gives you some idea of credibility of that person. In marketing, you just say, I'm a marketing person, just slap a number out there and people go. And so there's not something that goes behind it. So being able to earn that trust without giving things away to try to do that, because I did learn that once you give something away, it's hard to ever put a value on it again, because the only way that you saw it was something that was free. And
Yep.
and you're going to assume that whatever number I put on it was a made up number just to establish even a higher price tag value to it. So just that building of trust and being saying who you are, being who you are, and continuing to do that 10 years in. I mean, we have a 95% retention rate of our customer base year over year. We hardly have people that leave. And if they do, it's because of a change in staffing. They've brought somebody in that can replace us, or they're going out of business. That happens, unfortunately, sometimes. Or new ownership, new leadership comes in and they're like, hey, we've got our own team. But and I can't tell you we make everybody happy. I mean, there's always going to be a couple that are out there, but
Yep.
we have the way that we deal with our customers over and over and over, and just little things that are a part of that are building that trust. That's a huge thing, because no matter if you're a service business, if you're a one-time business, if you're in hospitality, whatever, it's that trust factor, because there's a lot of other choices that are out there that people need a reason to trust you, and they want to, and you need to give them something memorable and not something negative memorable, because that'll stick as well.
Yeah. That sticks a little bit more firmly, it seems.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. So, all right. So you've been doing this for a while. You step in, you spin it up, you're running it well. I'm sure that you have friends that come to you and say, "Hey, I think I'm leaving my job at the big megacorp.
Hmm.
How
Yes.
how how do I start?" What do you tell that person?
So I always go through the same couple of things. I'm like, okay, so you're going to go out on your own. That's cool, and it's fun. There's all kinds of positives. So I talk about pipelines, and those kinds of things are usually one of the first questions I ask. Like, well, what do you have? So you're going to leave. Yeah. Well, I've already got two customers. Oh, really? Okay. So who are they? You got these two people and they're going to do it. I said, okay, where's number three coming from? Because two is great to get started, but you're going to have three to grow or feed your family. And if one or two leave, then now you're in trouble. So that's the
Yes.
first thing that I always ask about is, what does that look like? And then depending on the type of business, if it's like an employee business or those kinds of things, because, you get people who are like, oh, it's just going to be mailbox money. I got this inheritance. So I'm going to, invest in this. And then, people will be doing the work. I said, well, when that guy doesn't show up, what are you going to do? Well, what do you mean? Well, they don't show up, and you're a restaurant or you're a laundromat or you're whatever these businesses are. But who's going to run the front while they're not there? Well, I don't know. I said, well, I can tell you, it's you. Or else you're going to put up a
Yeah.
closed sign, and if people show up and see a business that's closed and they didn't know it was supposed to be closed, they're going to think you're closed forever, and they're not coming back. So, so I
Yes.
always talk people just through a little reality, and not a dream crushing kind of thing, but just think about this for a little bit before you just jump. Just because you got a couple of folks that are there, or somebody said, yeah, you should do this, you should run this business, doesn't mean you always should. No,
Yeah.
just asking a few quick questions there.
Yeah. I think it was send a friend lasagna, Stephanie. She just says, "Would you be comfortable waking up at 3 a.m. to think about your business?" And if the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't do it. And if the
That's
answer
a
is yes,
good
you'll be
one.
fine.
I'll have to remember that one. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm going to borrow that one. So
Yeah.
I'll give
Yeah.
attribution back to you. Don't worry.
Well,
But
it's not me, it's Stephanie.
yeah,
So,
but I'll say I heard this about Stephanie from Matt on his show. So
yeah.
everybody gets credit. So
Yeah, everybody gets credit. All right. So one last question, which is really, if 2025 Bill could go back and sit next to 2015 Bill and say, listen, tomorrow you walk in, you're the owner, right? There's a
mhm,
million things sitting on your desk. What's the first thing you should do? Here's the first thing you should do, 2015 Bill. Start here. What
mhm.
would that first thing be?
It would probably listen better to the counsel around me, because I not that I ignored, but I thought I knew a whole lot more than I really did. And so there was a little bit of humble pie, a little bit of 3 a.m. in the morning, the ulcer gut rot kind of things that come with being an owner, those oh crud moments where you're like, I can't believe this is here. This is so bad. How we ever? So just talking about that, like, hey, these are going to happen. So it's okay. You'll get through it. But then also just listening to people around you, because I probably would have made some better choices at the beginning of setting up the business if I had heeded counsel. I'm not saying like we went willy nilly and then ended up coming back around kind of thing, but just there were some good advice I was given that I thought yes, I already got that. I'm good. I know what I'm doing, which
Yeah.
was not the case at all.
Yeah. All right. Any other advice you would give somebody who's a new or aspiring owner?
It's all about it's the grit and grind. Man, if you're willing to do it, if you're passionate about it, grind through it. You'll get through the other side. But be careful if it's something you really, 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 really love. Be careful about making it a business, because then you may not like it anymore. Just
Yeah,
because you're
that is
good at
true.
something and you enjoy it doesn't let that sometimes be a hobby. Not in a mean way, but just because you don't want to lose something that you don't want something to sour that used to bring you a smile, because now
Yeah.
you're waking up and having to do it every day. And it's just it takes some of the joy from it if you get into that. And I've seen people, that were woodworking or with food and baking and those kinds of things. They just lose their passion for it because now it's their job, and it eats away some of that. So being cognizant of that as well, so that you don't lose a part of something that makes you happy.
Yeah. Those are all good advice points. We didn't really talk about your business at all. You want to
Yeah.
do a quick kind of descriptor of what you do? And
Sure. So if you look us up, the fancy term for us is a full service digital agency, and in basic terms, that means we do all the things. So we can do branding, we can do print and package design, we could do a billboard, a magazine ad, build you a social campaign, make a website, run digital advertising, all across the gambit, photography, video, everything else that's in there. We put all that together. And so our job, thing that makes us a little different is that we're not the Superman in your story. We're the sage, the guide. Superman has to come in and save you because you're incapable of doing this yourself. We would rather
yes.
show you how to do it. And if you want to keep us along to help make the journey a little easier, that's good. But at the same time, when you're done with working with us, I'd never want anybody to go, man, I just feel like that's money I'll never get back. I want people to understand they're making an investment, and I'm happy to work with them. I tell people I never enter a relationship with clients thinking that, oh, this is going to be done in 2 months and we're done. I'm hoping we're working together till the end of our businesses. But if that's not the way it goes, I still want people to have a good understanding of what they got for the services that they paid for, and to feel that they at least they understand. Maybe not be able to do it, but they understand what was going on, and then they can feel confident in what to do it again.
It's interesting. The whole time that you've talked, essentially, the theme has been do the right thing,
Amen, brother. That's pretty much it.
which
So
which really isn't a bad lesson for somebody that's starting a business. Is like wake up and do the right thing. You'll be okay.
well, and it makes sleep a lot easier, because there are a lot of times where people will compromise values, integrity, other things, just because they're trying to worry about a bank account or a contract or something else, and it's not worth it in the long run. It's like what
Yeah.
mom used to always tell you: always tell the truth, and you don't have to keep track of your lies. So
Yep.
same kind of idea.
Yep. Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for being a guest.
Thanks, I
It's a
appreciate it.
a quick 23 minutes.
Yeah,
For people that want to learn more about
yeah,
Bill and his business, there's going to be information in the show notes, links, books, some basic information. And if you're listening and you like what you're hearing, 3 ways you can help: leave a review, hit subscribe, or share an episode. Uh,
fantastic.
there we go. So we'll be back next week. Until then, stay focused, keep working, stay profitable.